Hi learners, welcome to the Backbenchers classes, your one-stop solution for most government examination, general studies, paper plus UPSC optional and a lot of other information geopolitics related coverage that we are going to create on this particular channel. So myself Utkarsh Singh, I hope you are already aware with the name, those who have been following me. Now this particular video is going to be relevant for those students who are preparing for UPSC and specifically UPSC with anthropology as an optional subject. So you must be aware of two scholars, Malinowski and Margaret Mead. A question was framed in the year 2023 which asked that discuss the fieldwork controversies related to these two stalwarts of the field. So we are going to cover one of that part of that while we do discuss Margaret Mead's controversy with Derek Freeman. But before moving ahead with the discussion, let me give you a quick disclaimer and a quick reminder. Those of you who are willing to watch the same lecture completely in Hindi and English, they can follow our other channel, the second channel, that is called The Gaflat. You have to go to the YouTube search option and you have to type @The Gaflat. This is a more dynamic channel which includes information from various sectors, leading health researches, entertainment and cinema, stock market, financial product, personal financing, India and the world, global affairs, geopolitics, Indian polity, GK, and a lot of other things, plus UPSC and government examination preparation also. But all of this content you will get in Hindi and English language in this particular channel. Whereas our current channel where we are interacting right now, this is mostly educational. It also includes geopolity plus general studies of most of the examination, relevant for your SSC preparation, relevant for your UPSC preparation, relevant for your state PCS all right, depending upon the level that you require, you can get all of those things here. Now this is going to be solely English channel. All right, now for those who are also willing to join any mentorship program for anthropology, we have already started the program. There are two variants: Anthropology Achievers Plus, Anthropology Achievers 100 Plus, and Anthropology Achievers. All right, so what is the difference in this variant that costs you 9,999? You get live answer writing evaluation and also test series. All the other things are same. So you get note making guidance, you get 20 recorded session which has a summary of complete syllabus plus also discussion of important topics that you need to cover, and on which topic you have to make notes, which topic you have to revise more thoroughly, and which topics you can skip. So revision come note making instruction in that 20 recorded lectures that you can get. Okay. Plus you also get enrichment material. Those of you who are willing to get foundation, they can also get the foundation material here. Plus you also get personalized mentorship, one-to-one mentorship, on call, on Zoom, and with your other members of the group who have appeared mains for a couple of times. Now let us start with the controversy. But before going ahead with the controversy, let me give you a brief about who these scholars are, in case you have forgot the names. So in paper 1 of Anthropology Optional, Unit 6, we have a complete set of theories, scholarly thoughts, talking about culture, talking about society, and a lot of other components like personality, etc. There are total 10 theories in this particular unit. Out of these, the fifth theory, that is 6E, talks about culture and personality. Now culture personality is a specific school of thought which basically deals with understanding the correlation, interaction or interplay between these two components, that is culture and personality. How can culture shape and influence our personality, and the reverse of it also. So a lot of scholars are covered in this particular unit, like Abraham Gardner is there, Ralph Hinton is there, Cora Du Bois is there, Margaret Mead and Ruth Benedict is there. We also discuss few extra names like Rhoda Metrox and Gorer. All right. So in this particular portion, the scholar who is relevant to us is Margaret Mead. Now Margaret Mead has attained her master's or the PG degree from Columbia University, and later from the same university she also got her PhD. All right, all this was done under the guidance of a major stalwart in the field of anthropology, the father of American anthropology, and some people also do agree that he is father of modern anthropology, after all. So Franz Boas is the name which is associated closely with Margaret Mead as a guide, as a mentor, and as a close guardian figure in the life of Margaret Mead. Now, Margaret Mead was born in 1901. She's also an American anthropologist, just like Franz Boas, although Franz Boas was by birth or origin, he is a German person, a German individual, but his contribution towards anthropology is in the realm of American nationality. Now, in 1901, Margaret Mead was born, and you'll see that around 1917 New Year, she got married. First marriage was around 1917. But why we need to discuss her personal life? We have to be academic, isn't it? But there's a catch. A lot of scholars do claim, specifically her opponents and rivals, that a lot of ideas of Margaret Mead, which is reflected through her work, is mostly concluded from the point of view of her personal life only. That means there is a great degree of involvement of her personal life experiences in the work that she has produced. Essentially, the very culture and personality school also talks about a similar theme. This culture personality school says that our early life experiences translates into our later behavior, or you can say personality. So whatever experiences we do happen to suffer from, or we basically face during our initial formative years, that has a role to play in the later life, in our personality. All right. So what has happened to Margaret Mead and how it has influenced her conclusions, specifically her study on the Samoan people, we'll try to understand in this particular unit. So I'll give you a brief about the timeline and the chronological events of both personal and professional life of Margaret Mead, which we'll be later trying to connect. It's like a dot connected. All right. Let's go on this particular journey. So as I've mentioned, 1901, she was born. 1917, during the New Year Eve, she married for the very first time. Why we are saying first time? Because you will hear a lot of marriages coming in this journey. So the first marriage was in 1917 with an individual trained in sociology, later inducted in the field of archaeology, a major revered name in the field of archaeology. His name was Luther Cressman. He was an archaeologist. And after, in fact, this 1917 was not the marriage, it was rather the engagement, because during this particular time period, she was only 16. Later, this converted or translated into a full-fledged relation of marriage in the year 1923, that you can say after a period of 6 years of courtship with each other in an engaged relationship, she got married. The first marriage took place with this gentleman. But during this time period, around 1923 to 1924, she's also believed to have been engaged into a love affair with another giant of anthropological world, quite senior to him, both in age and work, whose name is Edward Sapir. We do hear about him in the field of linguistic anthropology. He has termed language as the vehicle of culture. He has called language as a non-instinctive, purely human mode of communicating ideas, knowledge, etc. So he has produced a good work in the year 1921, which is titled The Language. So he's a giant figure in anthropology, specifically linguistic anthropology. UPSC has also asked a question about him, I think in one of the years, in the recent year, in somewhere in, I think, 2017-18, the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which includes the ideas of Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Whorf. It is also called as linguistic relativism. So she got romantically involved somewhere between 1923 to 24 with Edward Sapir, when she was already in her marriage with Cressman. All right. Now, in 1924, she attained her master's, and after attainment of this master's degree, she was supposed to travel to Tau Island in the Manua island group, that is in American Samoa. all right, and it was expected to be around a 9-month period of stay and research on the people, on the indigenous communities of this particular island. Before moving there, she wrote a very dramatic letter to her then husband Cressman that I'm not going to leave you until I find somebody whom I love more than you. So she was probably rattled or sort of confused in her marriage regarding the status of marriage. Definitely Edward Sapir also had a role to play. Although things started changing when she reached the American Samoa, specifically the Tau Island, she started having a lot of correspondence or exchange of letters with Edward Sapir during her 9-month stay in the field. And there a lot of disagreement started to appear for the first time with Edward Sapir. She came to know that Sapir, according to her, is a very conservative type of person, and he has a very orthodox and conservative idea about the traditional role of women in the society. Owing to this, there was a lot of disagreement and fights, etc. All right, and later they both split from a very unusual relationship that they had. Now, to add one thing here, Edward Sapir was already a widowed person, and he also proposed Margaret Mead at some point of time between 1923 to 1925 before she moved there for a marriage. But as she started knowing more about him and forming an opinion about him, she is known to have rejected Edward Sapir's proposal for marriage, and Sapir was very much rattled with this rejection. Later, when Mead published her first work, Coming of Age in Samoa, he gave a very harsh and a negative review to that. In fact, he used a term which we cannot publicly use here. In fact, a lot of words were there. The only, I think, possible word that we can use here, I think I should not even use that. As an educator, I'm not permitted to probably even use that. So a lot of harsh and derogatory words were being used, probably influenced by the rejection. He criticized the work also and Margaret Mead as a person also. Now, in the style of the movie Jab We Met, just like Shahid Kapoor or Kareena Kapoor, someone of them burned the photo of their lover. They flushed it or dumped it somewhere. Similarly, Margaret Mead also burned all their letters and correspondence in the American Samoa and probably moved on. But she was also not very much probably happy with her first marriage with Luther Cressman. And while she was returning till 1926, she worked in the American Samoa. Somewhere around May or August, her work or her study was completed and she was coming back. During the return, she met somebody called as Rio Fortune. Rio Fortune was also an anthropologist, and he was also done a lot of research among primitive people. She developed a very instant liking towards Rio Fortune. All right, you can say she fell in love with Rio Fortune. And when she returned, she informed a year later in 1927 to her first husband that I'm not okay with our relationship, with our marriage, and I seek a divorce. All right. Now, definitely this type of decision do not materialize that quickly. So it basically took some time, and around 1928, she got her divorce and she got also married to Rio Fortune, her second husband. And in the same year, she also published, now this is going to be a very important year because she published her first work, that is Coming of Age in Samoa, based upon her 9 months of stay in the American Samoa, Tau Island, and the researches among the Samoan people. Now, during her stay in Samoa, she has interacted with around 66 women. Out of that, around 23 to 29 adolescent girls of age between 12 to 20 were being interviewed closely by Margaret Mead. This information is going to be one of the very important point of this entire controversy later on. All right. So she interviewed these ladies. Now, what was she researching upon? Whenever you go, I think most of you who are aware with what a research means. Whenever you're going for a research, you are having a research problem. You do certain literature review. So the research problem or the very question which she was trying to find answer of was basically that the level of anxiety, anxiousness basically, turbulence, frustration type of irritated behavior, and a rebellious attitude that is seen quite marked in the adolescent girls of America who are brought up through a parenting method which is largely influenced by European model. So they always have this type of rebellious attitude. So her question was, is this rebellious attitude product of biology or is it product of culture? Basically, it was a nature versus nurture debate, culture versus biology debate. Why? Because for most of the individuals, when you are in your adolescence, you face a lot of change, during the puberty, in fact, amongst the female, specifically during the onset of menarche, that occurs between 11.7 year to around 14.8 years. Differs from country to country, people to people, region to region. So there is no fixed age. Usually it is around, on an average, you can say around 13 years of age. Among the female, this menarche appears and the menstrual cycle starts. During this, there is a complex network of phenomena that is happening. A part of your brain, which is called as hypothalamus, releases a hormone called as GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. This GnRH triggers your anterior pituitary to produce what we call as luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone, LH and FSH. Now this sudden surge of luteinizing hormone is associated with the phenomena of ovulation. All right. During the later stage, when menopause occurs among the female, that is a cessation of menstrual flow and menstrual cycle, this LH surge drastically drops and it is accompanied by a lot of symptoms called as menopausal symptoms. Insomnia, anxiety, depression, weight fluctuation, all right, dyspnea, shortness of breath, and all these problems do occur due to the imbalance and sudden reduction in the level of LH. So her question was, she was trying to find it out that the changes that are seen quite marked in the young girls or the adolescent girls of America, is it product of this biological aspect or is it something beyond biology? Now, if it is product of biology, it is going to be same throughout the world because people throughout the world are facing that phenomena of menarche. They are undergoing the menstrual cycle, they are reaching a stage of menopause, they all are seeing the rise and drop of LH at various stages. So if it is due to biology, it must be same. But if the results are different, it means there is something beyond biology and probably culture is responsible for the marked attitude which she was talking about. So with this question and with this thing in mind, she reached Tau Island in 1925 for her fieldwork. And she concluded, her conclusion was that Samoan girls or the Samoan society in general does not have a lot of restriction that are seen among the Americans. So among the American people. Facts pertaining to sex, birth, death, etc. are quite openly discussed. There is no room for a great degree of secrecy or taboos around these things. In fact, according to her, her informants clearly mentioned that before formally getting married to a man, they all have frequent sexual interaction with other males in the society. Yani ki the premarital sexual relationship is quite common among the Samoan people. Also, the role change or the role progression is also quite smooth among the Samoans. That is, your transformation from adolescence to adulthood is not marked with a great degree of turbulence. It is quite smooth among the Samoan. Due to all these things, there is no clearly marked rebellious attitude, turbulent behavior aggressiveness, conflicting attitude, है ना? All these problems are not seen among the Samoan girls. So she came to the conclusion that it is not biology, rather culture which shapes our personality. है ना? So she was basically showing that culture is influencing our personality. The culture of Samoa is much relaxed, much calm, much open. है ना? That is why people are also in such a way. Among the Americans, there is a lot of things. For example, a lot of verses of the Bible, the 10th commandment, a lot of other verses, they condemn and they prohibit adultery. They treat marriage as a sacred institution just like every other religion on the planet. Premarital sex or the sex beyond marriage is not seen in a good way. Chastity is often encouraged among the people. So this is the religious code. And a lot of people do follow them, specifically during that particular time when she was doing her research. Now, so we are living in a modernized, highly urbanized, post-industrial, globalized type of world where things have totally and drastically changed. But during that time, a lot of people were like having orientation towards the faith. And it was a time period before Second World War. So society was a lot different during that particular time. So there was a lot of religious dogma. People were always, American culture is such that people and the children are like encouraged to be independent, but then they have to be restricted or their choices are being curtailed by the parents because they live under the roof that is provided by the parents. So there is a dichotomy in the thing that the society is encouraging, that is independence, and the overall authority of the parent that is curbing them or curbing their decision making or the role in day-to-day life. And so you'll see this even in the Hollywood movies. You see this Spider-Man, while he was going to his transition, he was not a female definitely, but when he was also going due to his like transitioning towards from adolescence to adulthood, there was a great deal of chaos. Definitely there was a lot of things that was going down in his personal life that must have also influenced things. But you'll see that most of the movies have clearly shown this type of conflicting attitude, this type of turbulence, during teenage specifically. So she has proved that the religious dogma, the societal expectation, you have to be independent, you have to be on your feet, you have to be very focused upon your career and career choices, what you're going to do in your life from quite early. You are expected to earn quite early, and you are living in a highly materialistic society. So all these things contribute towards that rebellious attitude, contribute towards that anxiousness, contribute towards that turbulence in the behavior, in the personality. Whereas here the society is a simple society. They are not living in a materialistic world. They do not have to do some job in a manufacturing unit, or IT was not that dominant. Let's say any other formal type of work was not expected to be done by the Samoan. They are basically, simple societies are basically either food collectors or food producer. Either they are into agriculture, pastoralism, or hunting and gathering. So their transition was quite simple. And this transition was promoted from an early age, and there was no marked turbulence in this, a very smooth transition. And that is why the behavior or the overall emotional state, as she has clearly mentioned, that the overall emotional state among the Samoan is very calm. So this was her conclusion. She reached the conclusion that culture is influencing the personality. The culture in Samoa is such that it promotes a calm attitude among the individual. Same is not true for America. That is why there is a difference. Now, this was the conclusion, everything was going good. But cut to, there came another individual. We are going to cover about his biographical works in some other lecture. We do not need to go into that much detail. So there came an individual called Derek Freeman. Just like Margaret Mead initially, he was also associated with Franz Boas, not directly, but he was under the influence of the entire Franz Boas school of thought, which is basically cultural determinism, which is very common among a lot of his scholars or anthropologists who have studied from Columbia University at any given point, or are being trained by any student of Franz Boas. So this cultural determinism attitude is quite there. So initially he was also cultural determinist. What does it mean to be cultural determinist? Cultural determinist means that you are saying that culture has a determining role in our life, on our personality, on our behavior, on our actions, or on thought, on our worldview. All right. So just like Margaret Mead, just like Franz Boas, Freeman was also initially a cultural materialist. But certain things happened which has changed his way of thinking, and he started being a major critique. Specifically, most of his reputation comes from the controversy that is involved between him and Margaret Mead. All right, probably if you take out this controversy from his life, he won't be that popular figure in anthropology. All right, so Derek Freeman, the two major work that he has conducted, first is among the Samoans, and the second one is among the Iban people, of Borneo. All right. Now, one more thing that will contribute towards this debate and controversy is that Margaret Mead conducted her research in American Samoa, whereas Derek Freeman's work was in the Western Samoa. Timeline was also different, and the reason was also different. One thing is common in both of his work, that both his work took place, initial studies took place in the 1940s. The first work, that is among the Samoan, started around 1940, and the work continued till a good part of 1943. So it was a 3-year prolonged, almost a 3-year prolonged work, much longer than Margaret Mead. And he uses this point that my linguistic proficiency in the Samoan language is far better than that of Margaret Mead. My research conclusion has to be prioritized. Although he has critiqued that Margaret Mead was not that great in Samoan language. Her proficiency is questioned. But other scholars who have reviewed Margaret Mead's work, they have clearly mentioned that Margaret Mead has well acquainted herself with the Samoan language. So there are conflicting ideas and viewpoints if you see Derek Freeman and other scholars who have reviewed Margaret Mead's work. Now, after doing this work and reading the work that was earlier produced by Margaret Mead, he found he found himself in a very conflicting situation. He mentions in his work that a lot of conclusion that was drawn by Margaret Mead were probably a lie, or she was being bluffed by the people there. So her conclusions were not right, and it became a very big controversy because Margaret Mead, at times nowadays in American anthropology, she and Ruth Benedict both are called as the mother of American anthropology. So they are giants in their own stature and direct students of Franz Boas, the father of American anthropology. So it was a big question, a big rebuttal, and it was popularized a lot by the journalistic columns and the media at that time also. All right. So based upon his conclusion, he started his rebuttal in around 1964-65. The first refutation of Margaret Mead work started during 64 and 65. But during this time, there are two things that you also need to know. There are a lot of allegations against Derek Freeman, which we'll talk about. But before that, let us try to understand what Derek Freeman had against Margaret Mead, what he was basically challenging. So Margaret Mead was saying that culture is influencing personality, and the premarital sexual association is quite common, and it is something that is not very tabooed among the Samoans. Virginity is not of very great value, or chastity is not something of very great value in the Samoans, which is keeping that complete environment quite calm, not very turbulent, because restrictions are less. But Derek Freeman says that virginity or chastity is so important that they conduct a ceremonial defloration, or what you can say also say a virginity test, which is called as topu in the local language. Now, Margaret Mead has also discussed this phenomena of topu or ceremonial defloration. But according to her, during the time when she researched in the Samoa, American Samoa, that is around mid-20s, 1925-26, this practice was largely in decline. And even in the past, when it was at its peak, it was mostly seen among the chiefly class, the high-ranking chiefly individuals, not among the commoners and the masses. And it used to be a way of forming political alliances in the society. That is, one chief will present his daughter or some other female of his particular relation and he will ask these females or the daughter to go through this public defloration or ceremonial defloration to prove the virginity. And the son of another chief or another chief himself, post this defloration test, is going to accept the female as a partner or as a wife, and it will result into a political alliance between two chiefly individual, two chief who are basically heading to different areas. So Margaret Mead firstly has said that yes, she has also concurred that this thing is true, this phenomena does exist, but it is in decline. And when it was there at its peak, it was among the chiefly class, not among the commoners. Now, Derek Freeman says that firstly, this thing is not declining. In my work, which came 20 years later, he researched around 1940-43, around 20 years later after Margaret Mead, 2 decades later, he says that taupu or the public's defloration is still a central element or a theme in their life, among the Samoans' life. Secondly, he says that although it was conducted among the chiefly classes, it was a mean of symbolic suggestion for the society that virginity is important. It was signaling that, see, if the chief are following this thing, you are also ought to follow it. So it was having a symbolic essence according to Derek Freeman, and it was important for Samoans. So Margaret Mead in her work of 1928 says that chastity, virginity is of no much value, and premarital sexual association is quite common, resulting in a very smooth, non-turbulent type of personality among the Samoan people. Whereas he says that this conclusion is wrong. Virginity is very, very, very highly regarded among the Samoans. But there is a catch. In a lot of his unpublished work of 1940s and also his PG diploma thesis, he has clearly mentioned that this phenomena of topu or virginity test or public defloration, ceremonial defloration, was in decline. He himself has mentioned this, but in his unpublished work. So the record of his unpublished work, according to a lot of scholars who have critiqued Derek Freeman for critiquing Margaret Mead, there is one such famous scholar called as Shankman. So he has highlighted that if you check the records, in his own unpublished work in 1940s and PG diploma thesis, which did not turn out to be in form of a book to be very popular, he himself discussed that this practice is declining, and it is so rare that we can consider it defunct, something which does not exist now, something which is thing of past. So his first claim is being criticized on the ground that he himself is having two contrasting opinions. In his public and published record, he is critiquing Mead and he is saying virginity was important. That is proved by the test, public defloration. But in his unpublished work and his PG diploma thesis, he's saying a contradictory thing, something which even Mead was saying. So his first point is null and void, according to scholars or researchers or reviewers like Shankman, on this ground. Okay? Later, his second problem is that, what is his second assertion? He was able to conduct a series of interviews with one of the two ladies which he said that were primary informant of Margaret Mead. Margaret Mead had interacted with these two women and he was able to get one of them who was live even in 1993. Margaret Mead work was basically in which year? 1925-26. All right. So if you take even this year of first interview, then 87 minus around 26, 27, 37, 47, 57, 67, 77, 87. Around 49 years or 50 years later. 49 years or 50 years later. During this particular time, he has mentioned that this woman was 86 years old. So if you minus around 50 years, that women must have been from 26 to 36, 46, 56, 66, 76 and 86. It is around 60 years. So if you minus 60 years from 86, the women, when Margaret Mead has researched, was around 26 or 25 years. Now this cannot be true. Why? Because this we have already discussed in the beginning, that the women or the sample that was tested, conducted, and girls who were interviewed by Margaret Mead were mostly between 12 to 20. And this is having a reason also, because she was doing research among the adolescents. 26 is the age of adulthood. After 20, after 19 and 20, even in physical anthropology and otherwise in common understanding also, we consider a person of year 25 to 26 years of age as an adult person, not somebody who is transitioning from adolescence to adulthood. The transitioning phase is between 12 to 28. The menarche, as we have discussed, occur around 12 to 13 years. All right, and the adulthood starts around 20 years. So the time period between this was the period of review for Margaret Mead. So probably, I think you can say that here also he was telling a lie just to defame Margaret Mead. Now, so he was able to find one of the women who was 86 year by 1987, and he was able to conduct series of 3 interviews. He was not directly like collecting the data or interviews. He was having some intermediate on each occasion. On the first occasion, the person who was interviewing one of the women, whose name was Fafua, the person who was interviewing her for the first time was Fafua's own son. Now, Fafua's son was handed over a book of Derek Freeman on Margaret Mead before the interview. After reading the book, he came to a conclusion that Margaret Mead has painted a very ugly picture of Samoan women. In fact, there is a word which is used, I cannot use that word, the closest word to it is prostitute. All right. So he came to son of Fafua, who according to Derek Freeman was one of the primary informant of Margaret Mead, which we have calculated cannot be possible. But even if you consider that she was the primary informant. So her son got to know from the work of Derek Freeman that Margaret Mead has painted a very wrong picture of the people, or specifically the women of Samoa. And he conveyed this to her mother, Fafua, before the interview. And that is why Fafua, when she was asked, was she bluffing or she played a prank or was she joking with Margaret Mead? She said, yes, I was joking. Because the pride of the society was at stake. And one more thing, the son was not some commoner. The son was belonging to a chiefly lineage. He was a very important person in the American Samoan leadership, the chiefly leadership. So they cannot get away with the loss of pride. Pride was of utmost importance. So probably this answer that Fafua gave was to cover all those things against which they were protesting. All right. Now, but this is half truth. In the 3 interviews that were conducted and 140 pages that were produced on the basis of this particular interview, Derek Freeman has quoted only a selective material of yes and no, which was said by Fafua. The next, if you read the complete correspondence or the complete interview, you will come to know that when later it was being asked that have you told anything like this or that to Margaret Mead, she has denied. Now, if she is saying that I have not mentioned this thing to Margaret Mead, and Margaret Mead is saying that this thing was told to me by my informant, then there is definitely a discrepancy. She cannot be the informant of Margaret Mead. Now we have 2 reasons for this. Firstly, her age does not fit into the column of the age of people whom Margaret Mead was mentioning. Second, and the biggest reason is she has never mentioned of a women like Fafua or a 2 primary informant. She has only mentioned about a group of girls which she has interviewed. All right, she has never mentioned that these 2 are my primary informant. So where does this come from? Where does Derek Freeman deriving this from? This is also a question to be asked, and probably a reason to not believe Derek Freeman. All right. So due to these things, he was being criticized, although he was successful in producing a very famous work in 1983, which was titled Margaret Mead and Samoa. All right. The myth around anthropological work, the name of the book was like this. And in the 1985, this controversy was so heated that AAA has to come ahead itself to give negative review and criticize his work to be irresponsible, badly researched, and badly written. So AAA in the year 1985 denounced his work and criticized it. But as we say, publicity is publicity. Publicity is not divided into good or bad. Shah Rukh Khan's movie Pathan was being criticized during the launch. There was a lot of controversy, but that translated in making it the biggest blockbuster of that particular time. Definitely after that, he himself broke his own record with Jawan, but during that particular time, it became the biggest grosser of Bollywood ever. And controversy has fueled a lot of that collection. All right. So due to this criticism by certain people and AAA itself, soon this particular work, 1983, became quite a popular work. In fact, journalistic media around the world, they crave for these moments. Whether it is Indian media, we often criticize Indian media, but everywhere people do search for controversies. So from Washington Post to New York Times to Times, all these magazines, newspapers published this claim which Derek Freeman was making, and it became a central point of contention. Now, one more thing is there which is quite bad, that just before this particular publication, 5 years before this particular publication, Margaret Mead died at the age of 77. So he was also being criticized that where were you? Why did not you publish the work or the criticism against Margaret Mead when she was alive? Why did you waited all this time? Because your fieldwork was in 1940-43. You printed the first article against or a paper against Margaret Mead in 1960s, and you took 20 more years to materialize it into a work. So you are publishing it after 4 decades, when just the time when Margaret Mead is dead, not able to defend and say something. So he was also criticized for this thing. Now, a very twist in this particular story is that during the time when he was researching among the people of Borneo, among the Ibans and other peoples in Samoa, he was diagnosed with a mental condition. In fact, he faced 2 psychological crises. The first crisis was in 1961 while he was working on Samoan, and the second crisis was in 1966. Okay? In fact, at this particular time, he was not working among the Samoan, he was working in Malaysia, Malaysian people. All right. So there is a museum called as Sarawak Museum. Sarawak Museum. All right. Suddenly, out of nowhere, he faced a psychological crisis or a trauma-like situation, and he acted like a maniac. He entered into the Sarawak Museum and he destroyed the carving of Dayaks, which is basically name of an indigenous community in that particular region of Sarawak. Sarawak is the name of the region in Malaysia, and there is a museum. Like just we have a state museum in Delhi, we have Delhi Museum of Bhopal, we have Bhopal State Museum, like that. Take Madhya Pradesh State Museum or Bhopal Museum in Bhopal city. So like that, Sarawak was a museum, and he entered and he damaged the carving, wooden carving of Dayaks, started acting madly. And then he also reached the residence of the curator of Sarawak Museum, with whom he had a lot of differences. Why he was having differences? Because they were having different idea upon the cultures of people of Borneo, and he started breaking things there, started acting maniac there. And he destroyed a lot of elements even at the residence of that curator. After this, definitely there will be outrage, and he realized it later. He fled to Karachi. What better place to do something wrong and take a hiding? So he fled to Karachi in Pakistan. All right. Again, in 1966, he faced a similar trauma when he was working among the Samoans. So there are 2 more things which add to this, that probably his mental condition, a lot of articles are also being written on his mental condition, which must have influenced him. So these are 2 primary reasons or the primary drivers. Apart from that, in 1970s, doctors have also diagnosed him with bipolar disorder, which also reduces the gravitas of his claim that he was making during that particular time. So, in conclusion, whether Mead was right or wrong, whether Freeman was right or wrong, this particular thing stays in anthropological literature as probably the biggest controversy. Now, we have discussed everything by writing it. All the things that I have mentioned is already mentioned in the slides, and you will be able to get these slides on our Telegram channel. Everything and a lot of other details, even the comparison chart of what were Margaret Mead's claim and what were Derek Freeman's claim, their live trajectories, the researches that they have conducted, everything is mentioned here in this particular slide. You can easily get access to this free of cost on our Telegram channel. So we are operating 3 channels. One is Anthropology by Utkarsing, the other is @the Gaflat, the last one is Backbenchers classes. So whatever content we will be shooting, we'll be posting it on relevant channels. All right. All the anthropological content will be present on our primary channel, the oldest channel with I think there are 5,000 to 6,000 followers there, subscriber to the channel. So you can get added in that list also. यहाँ पर भी आप हमसे जुड़ सकते हो. Then all the content of which are short for the channel @the Gaflat, you will find in this particular Telegram group. So you have to just go to Telegram, you have to put @ and these names, you will be able to find the channel. Do join them, the PDF will be sent there, and a lot of other material, study material, important facts, they are also being delivered. If you do have any question, do drop it and do share this to promote our endeavor. We are planning to bring a lot of content on this channel. I'll be bringing Amber and Amber in English complete book series on this channel, in Hindi on the Gaflat. I'll be bringing NCERT courses of history, art and culture, and a lot of other subjects subsequently. Pinath and a lot of other books of anthropology. We are going to discuss everything here. And I think in next 1 year, we are also planning to bring a complete foundation course free of cost for all the students here on this channel. So you just have to stay with us, subscribe this. As much as you share this channel, as much as we get more foots on this particular channel, we'll be encouraged to do more and more. Thank you very much for joining in. If you have any doubts, do drop them in the comment section. I'll be happy to reply. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Take care. All the best.